Good morning, everyone. I'm Big Mike. Welcome to 100.7 The Island's Living Kidney Donor Awareness Day. 1 in 10 Canadians has kidney disease, and that number is 2 to 3 times higher in our First Nations communities. That means that more and more people are suffering or will develop kidney disease and then need an organ transplant. If you're a willing kidney donor, even if you don't have a friend or loved one who needs a kidney transplant, but you would still like to inquire about generously donating a kidney to someone in need, this opportunity exists for you, and that's what today's broadcast is all about. My first guest this morning is Dr. Jim Selner from Vancouver, British Columbia. Jim experienced kidney failure 3 years ago. He's on dialysis right now, and he is currently looking for a living kidney donor. Jim, thanks for joining me this morning.
My pleasure. Good to be here.
Now, Jim, can you tell us how great is the need for kidneys across Canada?
Well, right now in Canada, there are approximately 4,600 Canadians on the organ donation list. That means that about 4,600 people are looking for kidneys. And one of the problems is that since 2006, the donor rates have stagnated. So that means that as the number of people who are looking for kidneys goes up and fewer people are donating, let's say, their kidneys, it creates a greater need. And one of the other problems is that in 2012, about 1/3 of people who died in that year, 2012, were waiting for an organ. They needed a kidney. So that's about 84 people died while they were waiting for a kidney. We don't have the stats up to 2014. So the need is great. And part of the challenge in terms of finding people who are willing to donate kidneys is there are different regulations in each province, and there are different needs in each province. And so, and there's not a coordinated effort across Canada for donating kidneys with however it may go, with wherever the person is.
I know that you're on home dialysis right now, but why at this time are you speaking out about this?
Well, it's a very personal reason. One is that I'm going to be 72 in a couple of weeks. It's about 7 years that I would be on a waiting list. My kidney failure occurred in 2012 when I was 69. In 7 years, I will be 79 years old, which increases my risk for receiving a kidney, because as you get older, these risks of, even though it's a relatively simple operation, which I'll explain a little bit later, there still are risks. The other reason is that as many people who are on dialysis, which I'll explain in the next section, it's a lot of complications in terms of dialysis. And while I'm currently on PD, that there's also risk that my body will stop accepting dialysis. It can happen at any time. And I would be put on hemodialysis, and that is a very intrusive procedure that's done 3 times a week. I was on it when I first experienced the kidney failure, and I'll tell you, that is very, very tiring. It just dragged you out incredibly. A number of years ago, I had an opportunity to get my sister's kidney, and it would have been a full match, but I didn't get it because the process was not in place. She was in Ontario. I'm in BC. She died suddenly, and British Columbia doesn't have a designated donor list, which means you can designate donating, let's say, to a family member if you happen to die in a car accident or a stroke or something like that, and that wasn't in force. Now, one of the good things about that is Terry, my sister, very wonderful, 2 other people in Ontario got her kidneys, and they are now functioning. Those people are functioning really well. She also donated her lungs, her heart, her pancreas, and her cornea. So it's amazing. I mean, she's still living out there.
You're listening to Living Kidney Donor Awareness Day here on 100.7 The Island, and you've just heard part one of my interview with Dr. Jim Selner from Vancouver, British Columbia. Jim is currently on dialysis and looking for a living kidney donor. I'll be back with part two of my interview with Dr. Jim Selner. Jim will explain dialysis. That's coming up right after news, sports, and weather headlines here on Living Kidney Donor Awareness Day on 100.7 The Island.